Also, it's got to update that. It says Sacramento's favorite sports morning show. It needs to say Sacramento's favorite sports show.
Yes.
We're the number one rated sports show
I think you're right.
any day part on any station. I think we got no shade. It's just numbers. Part of that reason, by the way, I'll give credit where credit's due. Me. And our next guest from The Athletic, Sam Amick. Good morning, Samuel.
Good morning, Dave. You're looking like this is like soccer Dave, haircut Dave.
Yeah, well, I'm not wearing a hat, but yeah, these are our upcoming training kits for next season. I picked them up when I was over there a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when we're releasing them, but I like them.
Jim Dave, you getting your work in? You look good. Maybe.
I don't like talking about it though, because then when I fall off eventually, it's like, oh, Dave's fat again. Although I'm still kind of, hey, we were just real quick. So we were just, did you see that yesterday was the 31st anniversary of the OJ chase?
No, I did not.
31 years. I was trying to think, because I mean, you and I are basically, we're in the same age bracket. I was saying people under 40 do not understand. There's no way they can tell or compare that, because you didn't go through it in the middle of the Knicks and Rockets finals. I on a whim, I said, God, what would it be like? It'd be like Game 6 tomorrow, and all of a sudden during a break they go to a live copter shot of at first I said Tom Brady, and then I said Shaquille. I don't know. I was trying to get across the point that I think the biggest thing people under 40 have trouble grasping is how beloved O.J. Simpson was throughout the country. He was at or near the top of any list of most beloved athletes. And I'm just trying to think of a modern, in kind of obviously a morbid way, but just I don't know who would compare today.
No, I mean, I'm kind of blanking because it's not only the star power, but it's, network TV was so different. And, no streaming, no social media. So the amount of eyeballs that shifted from, like the NBA finals ratings back then were far greater than they are now because of that. And then when that situation happens, the whole world, shifts and is watching the Bronco. And you combine what he did on the football field with the, the commercials and the movies and all the above. Yeah, no question.
So I'll often say, so for our parents, they were alive when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, a Kennedy moment, for example. And I think in our lives, we've had, I might be missing one, but I think at least three in no particular order. We've had 9/11. We had the Challenger crash. And I think OJ is one of those. And what I mean by that is where everybody who was conscious at that time, let's say over 8 years old, remembers exactly where they were. Where were you when the OJ chase happened?
I'm going to break your whole narrative here because I'm sitting here going, damn, where was I?
Really? You don't remember?
Well, because I was doing the math. I mean, so I was 16. I'm a sophomore, I think, in high school.
So you're probably at home watching the game.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. Okay. And I will add one, not to change topics, but it's somewhat regional. I mean, the list of where were you wins. Did you get any touch of the quake in '89, or were you?
Yeah, you know what? That is. I would absolutely add that. I was on we had this big giant red pillow. I mean, huge, like 6 foot by 6 foot, that myself and my sister would watch because we weren't allowed on the couches because we were basically dogs, and we were watching the World Series, obviously, the Giants and A's. Yep. And I'll never forget, my mom said, "Oh my God, look we had this like hanging off a chain, not a chandelier, but like a lamp that went over our dining room table." And we looked over, and I didn't feel it, dude. You were you were in Pleasanton then, weren't you?
Yeah.
I didn't feel it at all.
Yeah, I was in the thick of it. I mean, I was watching, that one is vivid. I was watching the game. I was a huge Giants fan. We had this old, remember the furniture piece, big screen TVs?
Yeah.
It weighed like 2,000 pounds.
Yes.
We had one of those, and what always stuck with me is that once the quake hit, that thing was literally kind of bouncing back and forth like it was on a Barbie set.
God.
And then I've told this story a million times. I lost the character test that day because my beloved dog, Tanner, the golden retriever, was underneath the kitchen table. And I ran to the kitchen table and I slid under the kitchen table and basically was like, Tanner, get out the way. and he looks back at me like with some disappointment in his eyes.
That's the visual of you like a little Sam Amon sliding under the table and just, I know you didn't do this, but just grabbing your dog and throwing it. Suck it, Tanner. I gotta be safe. Well, you know, we all learn. All right. Well, there's no real segue out of, well, I could make a segue, but I'm not gonna out of the one with free quake. But God, that was what? That was Jesus. That
was 89.
So hold on. So yeah, it was 89, 30, 36.
Yeah.
We're all going to die soon, Sam.
Here's a quick segue because you're the host, but at some point in this chat talking about big old stars, I was excited to share. I went to the Indiana Fever game last night.
Oh, okay. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, we can do it at the end or in the middle. I don't know, but let's not forget that it was
no. Let's go. I just did a whole I did a 20-minute segment, Sam. I'll do my best to catch you up without boring the audience by repeating everything. I did. The question was, Caitlyn Clark got pinballed around last night, a couple of skirmishes. Is it good for the sport? And I did this whole thing about the NBA's history with perceived or not racism and how they, around the David Stern time, you had the white guy from Indiana, you had the black guy from Michigan State come into the league. One goes to LA, Showtime, the other goes to Boston where they play the game right. And you had, you probably saw the 30 for 30 on it, where there was a real racial component in the 80s to the Celtics and to the Lakers and to that rivalry. I said, look, it's apples to oranges a little bit here, but there is a peripheral discourse that is ugly surrounding Caitlyn Clark and Angel Reese, and then went on to compare what Caitlyn Clark's going to a little bit to what Jordan did when he had to go through the Pistons, and that it's not that out of whack. And eventually the Bulls said, hey, Charles Oakley, hey, Dennis Rodman, why don't you join the team? And blah, 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 and that the WNBA could always step in and do a little bit more to protect their golden goose. So it was a lot deeper than that, but that's what we talked about.
Well, and I don't mean to make light of the discourse at all, but I mean, at least last night, she was getting bounced around by the white girls too.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And it's funny because it was, it's a privilege to cover the playoffs and the finals, and I'll make sure I don't sound like I'm complaining, but I'm a little road weary, and this was a night off, you know what I mean? But I'll be honest, I'm there, and I was maybe going to pop into the press conferences afterwards, but for the most part, I was just there to enjoy the game. And when the game starts unfolding, I was sitting next to a colleague, Vinny Goodwill from Yahoo Sports, and I was like, damn, man, I kind of wish I had my computer with me, because writing something potentially about, the first in-person Caitlyn Clark experience and seeing that particular game where it had everything. First of all, before the fisticuffs, her first 12 points, and this may be hyperbole. We were sitting there trying to make comparisons to the type of athlete she is. She gets a sliver in terms of a look, and she's just an absolute dead-eye shooter. And the Barry Bonds comparison was made where it's like, you're not going to get very many good pitches, but when you get them, he takes advantage. So it was like that part of the game stood up. Her physicality actually jumped out at me. Like, God, her handle and the fact that she is getting pressed, from the jump all the way down the floor. And we had a good bird's eye view where you just see this contrast between every one of her teammates has room to breathe, and the entire focus of the defense is just to jam her up, and to see her fight through that and do her do her thing was impressive. The physicality stuff, I kind of agreed with the Fever coach after the game. I mean, I couldn't believe that to me, and I'm showing my lack of WNBA role player knowledge, but number 3 on the Sun, Marnie, I think it was, I was shocked that she didn't get ejected. But you can really see, I mean, it's not even a matter of the dirtiness. They're just doing everything they can shut her down. But I was pretty impressed. She's incredible.
When you were talking about athlete comparisons, you used Barry Bonds. Just hearing you talk, Marina Mabry, by the way. I looked it up. There you go. Out of Notre Dame. What about Steph Curry? When we're talking about comparisons, I know it's not apples to apples, but yeah.
Well, the difference, we had that discussion. And yes, like younger Steph wasn't, and I'm talking like, 10, 11, 12, wasn't as transcendent yet. He was getting bullied. So that is a good comparison, but I think the distinction was, and I don't love the Bonds one because she's certainly not at that level. It's just that, like, it's from a sports competitive standpoint, it's that idea that throughout the course of a game, and the parallel here is obviously pitches versus, looks at the rim. You are not going to have many looks. And there was 1 3 that she missed deep on the right wing that I thought spoke volumes about the way her mind works, because she was leaning, she was not in position, and it didn't matter. She's like, this is one of the better looks I'm going to get. Let me fire away. But no, the Steph one has plenty of threads that check out as well. But even more broadly speaking, to see the level of physicality, I'm just talking about the W, and it's like, I was a little struck by it. It is the first W game I've been to since last year. I went to a game in Vegas, an Aces game. But this one, I mean, I'm sitting there going, this looks like, something like a level above NBA playoff basketball in terms of just the physicality and what
not only late 90s NBA.
Yeah. I didn't, and I know this was a little bit of an outlier of a game in terms of how physical it got. And my God, we left too early. We left with like 3 minutes left in the game before that last kerfuffle. But yeah, the physicality was off the charts.
Last thing on it, is it good for the game?
I think that, again, it was fun because this is like fresh eyes, not what I do. I don't cover the W. Sure. So my answer to that would be that it needs to level out a little bit. It was, if that's every night, that's to the extreme. And that first, I didn't read it, but I think Christine Brennan from USA Today, who's a known, just staunch, at times over the top advocate for Caitlyn Clark, wrote a column saying, the W fails again when it comes to last night, that they've got to get things in check. Today, this particular instance, I probably fall on that side of things where, again, that body bump where you send, I don't care if it's Caitlyn or anybody else, you send a player, I mean, absolutely could have gotten hurt, physical through the roof, and you get they did, I guess, 3 techs and a flagrant 1. I mean, somebody should have been tossed in that one.
Sam Amick joining us. Kevin Durant.
Yes, sir.
This thing going to wrap up before the draft, end of the weekend. I mean, I know you don't know, but like, do you feel like it's coming to a head?
Oh, damn, I know you don't know anything. Just kidding.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put you on the spot to break news. You know everything, but yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, I'd be surprised if it got past the draft because that's been the messaging. On the other, as we wrote yesterday or 2 days ago, and honestly kind of enjoyed painting this picture, is like, we're in phase 2 of the situation and the negotiations where, right out the gate, okay, it was established that San Antonio, Houston, Miami are his preferred destinations. And what we reported is that the Suns clearly don't like what they are hearing from those 3 teams and are looking at other situations. And that's where it gets stickier. Minnesota in particular is one where the Suns have been hoping that they could get the Timberwolves back to the table. And the reason the Timberwolves aren't at the table is because they don't want to do a Durant deal unless they are confident that Kevin wants to be there.
Yeah.
And so there's some, like, admittedly some messaging happening where it's almost the Suns trying to paint the picture for Kevin, like, you get to play with Ant, you get to Jaden McDaniels is an elite wing defender who could take defensive pressure off of you. 2 trips to the West Finals in a row. They're hoping, because they like what Minnesota potentially has to offer, So because of all that, whether it's Minnesota, anybody else, it still feels like it's going to take a minute because the Suns are, I think, probably a little shook by the quality of the offers coming their way.
So you think we're getting to a point of either a best and brightest offer all the way around, or could you see a dark horse coming in here? Someone we haven't talked about.
Well, it's again the question of, does Kevin change his stance on any of the teams not on his list? Now, I keep making this distinction. My understanding, like, you have the list, and that's like the thing that his camp chooses to leak to the media, and then you have like the real stuff where what Kevin is telling people, and we have come across some of that stuff, and there's some reason to believe that he's looking at San Antonio above the rest. Now, as you know, Dave, because this is you and I lived it with the Fox trade, we just saw how the Spurs had zero intention or willingness to give up anything on their roster, right, let alone anybody in their young core. I don't know that has changed all that much. The way it's put to me that they're not going to go all in to get Kevin. So the question now is, does this become like a Jimmy Butler situation, where Jimmy, it was Phoenix or bust? And then initially they had signaled that he would not sign an extension with the Warriors and that he didn't want to go to Golden State. And then lo and behold, here he is, and they have a playoff run. So it's to a degree, it's on Kevin now.
I know that, or I think I know that this isn't the thing, but I'm going to lead into another question. So Houston, Miami, San Antonio, they have things in common. But the one that strikes me, because it's a pet peeve of mine with the NBA, and again, I think Kevin's made enough money to where this probably doesn't matter, but you're also dealing with all three live in no tax states, no state tax.
I think it does matter. I know where you're going.
Matters. Okay. Look, Mike Bass with the NBA. It's been wonderful to deal with for you. You're like, where are you going? Wonderful. He's been great. We have this ongoing email joke over the last decade where twice a year I say, hey, I know he's not busy. Want to see if the commissioner would have some time for us in the mornings. And it's always like, you know what, we need to get him on. He hasn't been, and I don't think he's been on in this market in like 15 years. At some point, we're going to get Adam Silver on. My point is, you have better access than I do. Could you pretty please, at some point, when you have access to him, I just want to know why the NBA does not weight the cap based on states that do or do not have state tax. It would be a little convoluted, but doable. The mathematics work. And why should Texas or Florida have an advantage over California and New York over things that the franchises have no control over?
So he got asked that question recently.
Oh, breaking news.
Yeah, and I'm trying to. I do remember the gist of his answer. I'm trying to.
It'd be funny if you said I don't remember what he said.
No, it was it. I think it was a press conference setting, so that would have been maybe going into the finals. Regardless, his answer, agree or disagree, I think you're going to strongly disagree, was basically, and it was political, was that there are all kinds of, call them micro advantages that are part of that experience. And he mentioned small market versus big market, and essentially it was like the playing field has never been completely level, and we can't run around trying to adjust to every, I think he mentioned warm weather, cold weather, like all these different things that play a part, and that they have, neither the bandwidth or the ability to just fix this. Now, if you want it fixed, Dave, I say this like lightheartedly and also sincerely, we've learned recently that, and I think Adam's a very good commissioner. He is pretty subject to public pressure.
Yes, he is.
And, it's been wild to see like people complain about the signage,
the logo.
The logo and all that stuff. Boom, they fix it.
Yeah.
People complain about the intros in the finals not being on TV.
Yeah.
Boom, they're fixed. People within the league even joke now to the media, like, if you want something done, just tweet about it and then get it to go viral. And it will cross his desk, and he won't like the negativity of the conversation, and he will change it. So, there's your homework assignment.
Well, the problem, or maybe the advantage there, is that and yes, you're right. I definitely would have some retorts to the commissioner on that. But look, you got the Knicks, you've got the Lakers, the Clippers, the Warriors, that all I think would agree. It's bad enough that we have shoe companies doling out bonuses based on market, and that's sort of an underhanded factor, big or not, in getting players to go places. But it's the one that pisses me off is that we don't have the bandwidth. Like, come on, dude.
I mean, that was my word.
No, I get, but like put a couple of nerds in a room for an hour with the tax code of all the states, and they'll find out very quickly. Okay, if you play in California, you get 1.35% or whatever. It's anyways. All right.
I mean, I don't even know, and I'm the farthest thing from an attorney.
Yeah.
The players already currently playing there from a legal standpoint, you're probably going to get pushback from the players union that says you cannot swoop in here and take money out of our pockets legally. I mean, I'm sure there would be some complications.
Well, but that's why you're right. You couldn't, and the association would never go for it.
That's why the next CBA.
And then you're not taking anything away. You're making it what you're really doing, and this is why the Players Association would wholeheartedly support this. Would be, okay, now instead of if you choose between LA and Houston, you're going to make markedly less in LA. We're now just bringing it up so you, the player, can choose to play in LA and not have to make a financial sacrifice for not playing in Texas, because the California team's cap just went up 2.64% on what the base, again, easy fix. Rumors abound that the Sacramento Kings they are working out players that they have no business working out based on their second round draft status. There are rumors abound, though, that they've been putting word out that they are going to try to move up. They are going to try to get in the first round. I would also add something we've been talking on the show quite a bit this week about, Sam, that Scott Perry, in just under 2.5 seasons in New York, completely gutted 100% of the Knicks roster. I don't know that he's going to do that here, but he's not afraid, or hasn't been in the past, of making moves. Are you hearing anything, or what's your sense as far as the Sacramento Kings' aggression or lack thereof going into the summer?
Yeah, I mean, I do have indications that they are looking at a lot. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to overhaul the roster, but I think they're looking at big stuff. I think they're looking at small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The point guard pursuit is very real. I don't know where they will land on that front. It's kind of a, if only Drew Holiday was 5 years younger type thing. I think that type of an option has been considered and explored, but is imperfect because of his age. And then if you go younger, there's a lot of Trae Young rumors. My understanding is there's not interest there, unless it came attached to a bunch of first round picks. So I don't know on the point guard side of things what the outcome is going to be. Also, I mean, as an aside, and they're not alone here, I think, we would love to know all the different conversations the Suns have had about Kevin Durant, because it goes far beyond his list. And it also includes teams like the Kings that they might go ahead and say, well, we're not in the mix, but sure, we would love KD for this. But then beyond that, it's, can we be a third team as part of a possible deal to benefit? And I think they have interest in something like that. So, yeah, I mean, he's active. You said it earlier. He's not afraid to take big swings, and he knows that this roster is very imperfect and in flux, and his job is to pick a direction and start going that way.
All right. Live from Indiana, the site of Game 6, in which Tyrese Halliburton was said by Rick Carlisle to be a game time decision. We'll find out, I'm sure, the MRI today. And no MRI news yet, right? Out there?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good.
Well, I mean, just eyeball test. Watching him walk out of the gym the other night. Yeah. I described him as an old man on a Sunday stroll. Like, he was moving very gingerly. So I think he'll try to play, but as we saw in Game 5, that's not always a great thing when he's not feeling like himself.
Tyrese Halliburton moving gingerly, according to Sam Amick. Don't know what hair color has to do with it, but we will find out for Game 6. Sam, appreciate
you. Miss my kids like that, man. The gingers.
I'm father of a ginger. You're talking to him. I have a pass. Have a safe trip back and safe travels home. We'll talk to you soon. Hi to the fam.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
Okay, take care. That's Sam Amick. We are late for a break. When we come back, we'll update you on Sac State, what they're going to do. John Fisher as well.